Peace. It's your girl, Dior Ashley Brown of DC Music Summit. Super proud to be here at Blues Alley here in DC with none other than Nicole Henry, who is an international award-winning vocalist. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Great to be with you, and thank you for having me.
Yes. It's awesome having you. You look beautiful. And I saw your show today. You were on WSA 9.
That was fun. In fact, that was my second time in that studio, so it felt like I was like, ooh, it's my second time returning, but it's great to be back in DC. I love the city.
How often have you been here in DC?
I have been performing here at Blues Alley, I want to say 2008, so 15 years at least, yeah.
Oh, so you're family.
I definitely feel like there's a home here for me. I love it.
That is awesome. How did you gain the title of International Award-Winning Vocalist?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I'll start with the international part first. One of the first places that I ever toured outside of Miami, which is where my career started. When I graduated from the University of Miami, I started singing and figuring out this industry in Miami. But one of my first gigs outside of Miami was actually in Tokyo, in Japan. And I've probably been to about 17 different cities in Japan. So it was like right out the gate. Before I was a national artist, I was an international artist. And actually that's where my first CD reached #1. The first country that I ever, so it was in Japan, which is kind of wild.
Hold on, your first gig was Tokyo?
International gig outside of South Florida. Outside of South Florida was pretty much in Tokyo.
And that was off your first project?
Yes, this was back in the day when you printed CDs, a lot of them, and I think it was CD Baby that I had put the CDs out first, and I got an email from somebody in Japan that said, "Oh, would you mind if can I distribute your CD in Japan?" And I was like, "Certainly." And it wasn't until like a year and a half later, about when I got my first show out there, a tour about, like I said, a bunch of cities, did I realize that this person who I thought was a woman was actually a male, because his name was She, or Shu. So I thought I thought it was a cute name for a woman, but yeah, anyway, Tokyo, yeah.
So were you nervous about sharing your music overseas that way? And when somebody just coming up to you and asking you, "Hey, can we do your music overseas?"
Not at all, because I'm no fool. So I was like, well, if you send me the money, I'll send you the box of CDs. So he sent me the money. So I was like, okay, I'll send you the CDs. And thank goodness I lived 3 blocks from the post office in Miami Beach, because I would be going there dropping off CDs every 2 weeks. And it was like miraculous to be, here I am, an independent artist. I'm big in Japan. I'm carrying my boxes to go box by box, shipping CDs to Japan. So it was pretty wild. I was named Best New Artist in Japan in 2000 and back in the day. 2000.
That's incredible. How did that opportunity come? Do you remember?
He just found me on CD Baby. On CD Baby, and emailed me. So that was how it happened. And yes, you never know. But so that was my first international one. But oddly enough, I was speaking to the manager here, Norelco, who was a great manager here of Blues Alley. The first time I was really inspired to start singing full time was when I was in college. I recorded house music, and when in 1998 in college, one of my songs reached #8 on the Billboard dance music charts, and I was like, I recorded the CD, the song house music. Back in the day, you'd go into somebody's bathroom and record the tune, the vocals, and I was like, I just recorded that album in this gentleman's house. We put it out. The album went out to DJs, and that's how that particular chart is made. But anyway, I was like, I'm on the Billboard charts. I was like, wait a second, I can do this. I can get into this industry somehow. So I figured it out, and 5 years later, I put out my own CD. 4 years later, I fell in love with jazz. It just so happened that I didn't know jazz really, didn't know the music. And then when I heard it in 2002, fell in love with it, started singing it in 2003, put out my album in 2004, and then 2005 I was touring. So it was wild.
That is incredible. How did you begin after that? How did you begin this? How did you, get connected into actually wanting to do this full time?
The first time I fell in love with performing was in 2008. So based on the house music track, this DJ I had recorded 2 or 3 songs with him, and he said, "Well, I'll call you because I would love to start doing shows at raves and at nightclubs." And people, people everywhere, but particularly in the arts, people talk. Because everybody has a dream, so we sometimes speaking your dreams into reality. So I would say, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, call me." And sure enough, he called me, and we started doing clubs at raves and at nightclubs. So my first gig, where the difference between singing one song, getting up at church, or singing the national anthem, or doing a talent competition, the difference between singing that one song and then having to go do a show, the difference is entertaining people for 4 songs in a row, for example. That was my first experience. And so that was the learning curve right there.
Yeah.
Get up there and sing for people that don't know you, right? This was also another first time that happened. And entertain them.
Yeah.
Between the songs. Note, between the songs and during the song. You got to get people moving, you got to get people engaged, you have to, and so having that fear factor that first time was the best thrill of my life, and it continues to be that thrill. And I was like, I've never felt this way before. I've never been this nervous. I've never wanted to get better at something more than that. And I was like, I've got to figure out how to make this happen. So that was my that's when I decided I have to figure it out. And so that and then it just stayed with me. But yeah, it's when something like that happens, and I feel blessed that I have a passion to do that I've found it, and I hope that it lasts forever. Because who knows, one day I might wake up and be like, I hope not, but you don't know that one day you're gonna wake up and that's gonna happen to you. And you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And for me, to be nervous at something, to actually be afraid of something, I guess I'm a thrill seeker. I really like adventure sports. I like hiking. I like biking, skiing. I'm like that. So basketball. So yeah, I was really just enthralled with the thrill of that fear. And yeah.
You are super inspiring, because I have 80 questions coming at once, and I had to figure out which one I wanted to ask. I was no, but it's great. So you started playing with house music, and then you found your love in jazz. And so the artist in Japan, right? He heard your house sound, and then he heard
the jazz. He heard the jazz recording. So, my jazz performance is different than a lot of jazz out there, especially at that time, because I was bringing my pop soul background to this new genre that I discovered and just fell in love with the lyrics. So my journey has been different than any other jazz singer's journey, probably. All of our journeys are different. There's something for us and only us, and there's something for everybody out there. So yeah, we all have a different path.
And I like how you bring that up, because there is no one blueprint to following your dreams, and you are definitely an example of that. Where are you from?
Born in Philadelphia, raised in what they call Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Been Salem High School, so right off a state road, just northeast Philadelphia. And then went to college at the University of Miami, go Canes, at 17, and then never turned back. Yeah.
So how did the early days of music come into your life?
Singing at church, singing around the house to Aretha, Sylvester, the Pointer Sisters, and then of course the Spinners and the Commodores, but that was finding my voice. And when back in my day, this was when Whitney Houston was newer, and so singing all of her songs, and then singing at school choirs. So yeah, talent competitions. I would just gospel singing in church to me was the most influential, most moving, because you learn to sing to move people, not to sing to sound good. You're singing to connect to something, and that to me is where the root of my love for music and performing is. Yeah,
singing with that context. That's what sis.
For gratitude, singing for gratitude, just to show people how much you love life, how much you love learning and living and growing, how much you love understanding a lyric, because that means I'm understanding life, and how much you want to encourage other people to be comforted by a song and be comforted by the knowing of that you're heard. What you're going through, we all have a certain level of going through it. So yeah. And celebrating it as well, celebrating the good and the bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you know it was going to be a career? Was it University of Miami?
Well, my mom said my mom basically was like, when I bought my own condo, she was like, oh, okay, so it's a job. that was later. Right. But the question was, when did I think it was a career? It could be a career. I had no idea. I think I just wanted to do it. And honestly, it started with acting. I wanted to do it. But I know it's not fair to say I wanted to sing and act. And so there was one step that I didn't mention that made it real to me is when I was just out of college, the Billboard chart had happened. I was working then for the Grammy Awards. So the Florida branch at the time was now a chapter. The Florida branch of the Recording Academy, I was in that office working as the assistant to the executive director. And one of the board members was an A&R guy at Billboard Latino. And I guess he was, so RCA Records had an artist that was coming to town to do a show, and they needed a background singer. And I'm pretty sure they went to this gentleman and said, we were looking for like a black, bluesy, soulful singer. Probably, I don't know what his words were exactly, but he had never heard me sing, but just knew that I sang. He said, oh, well, call Nicole. And so they called me. And they asked me if I could go sing for this blues rock band that was coming to perform in about an hour away in West Palm Beach. And I said, sure, I can do it. And I was like, I love the blues. And they said something about, do you mind playing a tambourine? I was like, I can listen. Rhythm is my life. I'm down. So I drove up there. I was late because I didn't know what traffic was like getting up there. And this was back in the day. We had a CD Walkman.
Yeah.
You youngins don't know anything about this stuff. They had a CD Walkman. I was there like listening to the tracks, and then I was like, okay, I got it. And I think they had printed the lyrics, or maybe I printed the lyrics, I don't remember. And I went up there and did the gig and was back there shaking and singing. And they said, oh, we have a tour this summer. We're going to call you. That was in May. And they said, we're going to call you. I was like, yeah, sure, call me. People talk. Well, sure enough, they called me and was like, can you go on tour with us for 6 weeks?
Wow.
I was like, you asked me that again? I was like, you better believe I can go. So I took all my sick days, all my vacation days, and took a leave of absence from my job. And I knew it. But the minute I got up, first of all, it was a tour bus. We were on a tour bus for 6 weeks.
Oh, you had that real experience first time.
I mean, which might not sound fun now. Actually, I would still live. But, and the first gig was at House of Blues in New Orleans. I was like, I'm quitting. But I mean, I waited till I get back. I was, waiting. And once I realized that, because then on the road, you start talking to people and you learn that people make a living. People can make a living doing this as a background singer. I mean, I could have been a background singer for the rest of my life. And you make a great living as a background singer. And then I just realized, okay, let me figure out how to do this. Let me figure it out. And I figured it out. But I'm also blessed that I was acting at the time down in Miami. I studied acting at the university as well. Okay. And I was doing commercials.
And that was your second degree. Yes. Your first degree?
Is in communication. So I studied advertising. So graphic design. Yeah, it worked out. Somehow. So yes. Yeah. Yes. So indeed. I figured out, so I would go to castings a lot in the daytime and then work at night doing my gigs. And then, even just falling in love with jazz. I mean, my first couple gigs were just me and a guitar player. And we just picked our favorite songs that we knew that we had lyrics to, and we made a little demo CD, pressed up our 50 and put the CD stamps on it, and sent it to. We looked in the New Times and was like, who has music? Circled all the clubs that had music, called them, sent the CD. We got our first gig in a couple weeks and had a weekly gig. We were like, all. Yeah. So we did that probably for 2-3 years, but that first year I got best solo musician in Miami on the New Times and the New Times. And then it just kept going from there. You stay out every night and you just hear more music and get inspired. And we were hired to open up for this jazz club. And I had never consciously listened to jazz as a genre. And we would stay around after our 1.5 hour set playing, guitar and vocal. And that's when I was like, oh, this is Ella Fitzgerald, this is Cole Porter stuff, this is Frank Sinatra, this is Tony I would hear the singers reference these artists. I'm like, growing up for me, I remember when I saw Ella Fitzgerald on like American Music Awards or Grammys or something like that. And I didn't know, I just knew she was a jazz singer, but I didn't know her music. I saw Lady Sings the Blues, the Diana Ross, Billie Holiday movie, but I didn't understand the music. Yeah. So who would know that I was I wouldn't think if someone asked me many years ago, do you think you're going to be a jazz singer? I'm like, wait, what's jazz? Huh? What? A singer? What?
So who are some of your inspirations in music?
In jazz, I would say Carmen McRae, Nancy Wilson. Nancy is probably first. Sarah Vaughan. Yeah, Nancy's my probably those three, if I had to name the first three. But when it comes to singing, my go-tos as far as who I think I've learned how to feel music and sing is still Aretha. Whitney. And again, some Patti, but those artists that my mom played for me in the 70s and gospel.
How would you describe your sound?
That's funny because it changes regularly. Some days I just want to do like a folk song. Sometimes I want to sing a gospel song. Sometimes I want to sing a James Taylor song. Sometimes I want to sing a Michael Jackson.
So your shows have variety.
They really do.
Okay. It's always a new experience.
It's really a message. For me, it's about a message. What am I feeling? I've made 8 albums, mostly in the jazz vein. One album was a duo CD, me and guitar. Great guitarist. But I would say that it's steeped in jazz because of the format, as far as piano, upright bass usually, guitar, often guitar and drums. So a lot of acoustic instruments. Not a lot of synthesizers and a lot of acoustic music. So I would still categorize myself as a jazz singer to that extent. If these days, thank goodness, we're moving away from genres more and more. But back in the day, people wanted to know exactly what you were. I don't know. I always leave it up to the person. I remember Nancy Wilson would call herself a song stylist. And I like that. I think that defines. Yeah.
Nancy Wilson's so awesome. And so are you. You have all of these tour dates coming up, and you've done many tours before. What would you tell a career artist how to prepare for something like that? Like, what type of artist do you need to be? And it may not be fair in a sense, but let's keep it real, Okay,
so a lot of it comes down to but tours are based on what clubs are convinced that you can bring people to their clubs. So just remember that.
About numbers too.
It's about numbers. You can't go to a club and say, can you pay me X amount of dollars to come to Raleigh, North Carolina, for example, and say, you should hire me, I'm good. Who's gonna come hear you? What are you gonna do to market it and get people in the seats? Most of the questions are, have you been to this town before and where have you played and how many people are there? So it's like, you can't have the chicken before, which came first. And so you really have to prove to them that, for example, maybe someone like Blues Alley, for example. I remember for probably a year or 2 or 3, I was reaching out and sending emails and sending CD, yes, and sending notes to Blues Alley. And a gentleman who would come to Miami from DC would see me regularly. He would come to my guitar duo, and then he would come hear me. He heard me sing jazz, and he was like, "You really should play Blues Alley." And I was like, "Funny you say that." He goes, "Oh, I go all the time." I said, "Oh, you do?" And so he literally called the owner at the time, told him about me, and was persistent about that, and made it happen. I mean, literally what he told me is, I think I can say this here. He goes, I was like, "How did you get it? How did you get me in?" He goes, "I called him up and I spoke Yiddish to him." And I was like, "Yes, my brother, come on." But, and sometimes you just don't know how you get the gig. You don't know. So, it might be that somebody says, "No, Nicole's, you bring her here once and the word will get around, and you'll definitely bring her back again." So you have to, not only do you have to convince the owners of the club or the promoters that you can put people in the seats, but nowadays more than ever, like back in the day before there was so much social media or any social media, I would supply the club with a poster. As soon as that gig, the contract was signed or the agreement at that time, who knows if there was even paperwork at that time, I would send them a 11 by 11.5 by 17 poster. I would send them a stack of 200 flyers, so that was in the club for a month. So people were like, "Oh, who is this person? She must be backed by some label, or she must be somebody." And so that doesn't necessarily happen these days because clubs don't do as many flyers. But then I asked them, so that back in the day, that's what I would do. And that made a big difference. But also having product out at that time, it was having product. New York City, for example, this was back in the day when Virgin Megastore was open in New York City. And I had my first CD release, and I had my own label, created my own label. And fortunately, a friend connected me with a distribution company that picked me up and said, "Sure, we'll get your, here are the programs that you can do to market yourself to Barnes & Nobles and Virgin Megastores at the time." And can't even remember, there was 2 or 3 other places that were big CD stores. So I would spend the money and buy a $2,000 in jazz. It was lucky because it was inexpensive, but you buy an end cap that they would call it. So when you go into the store and like things are on sale or they're featuring an artist, in the jazz department there was Nicole Henry's CD for 2 weeks or a month, because I bought the end cap to have probably one of 10 CDs positioned there. So you have to make the investment. You have to. And like I said, I lucked up. Got a couple national commercials acting. Yep. So every dollar I pretty much made, I put right back into making more music and marketing my CDs, Yeah. So it's a commitment, and it's nonstop. You have to be committed to it. I tell new artists out there, if you want to be an artist, get your team, create a band. Okay. Because if 4 people are doing the work, you can go farther. If you're there but doing it by yourself, it's a hustle. It's been a hustle, but I love it, and I'm a hard worker, and I like long nights, and I can plow away and focus. But yeah, that was a part of my journey. So touring, you have to you have to prove either. Let them say, "Give me a chance," or "I'll do it for $500," or "I'll do it for X dollars," and just give me a chance. I'll come on a Tuesday night or whatever. Because it took me years to get a weekend night here at Blues Alley. So it just goes to show you, everything takes time. Yeah, it's about persistence.
Do you consider yourself an independent artist?
Yes. I still have my own record label. I still do the marketing, buy the, create a plan, make the goals for the marketing budget, or just say this needs to be done and find the money, Yeah.
Would you have it any other way? Do you want to be signed, or do you like the independent life and having more control over your...
I would love to be signed, but I have done it so long by myself that I know what I want. And so it's hard to accept mediocrity or people that talk a lot and don't really deliver or don't know what to do. And I don't mind teaching somebody, but be innovative. be creative, and we can do this. I'll teach you, but I mean, I've been blessed to have some great assistants along the way, which saved my life. And one I had for 8.5 years, and he was amazing. I had his master's in music, and he really was a full-time employee of mine. So we lost him, heart attack, 34 years old. So that was tragic, because I know if he were here, we'd be much farther along the way. But yeah, so you just, you own your own business.
I mean, the fact that you're still having fun and that you enjoy it, and then you've learned so much about yourself, and that's the most important part. Yeah, like the fact that you're excited to be here again at Blues Alley is a big deal, and that is beautiful. And I don't want to let this go by, but you've also captured the role of Shug Avery in The Color Purple. Can you tell us about that experience?
That was so fun. I love acting. When I tell you I love acting, I love acting.
Yeah.
Maybe more than singing, probably because I don't do it as much. You can't just get up on the corner and start acting, People might lock you up if you did that. But it's the whole production of it, and getting to work with other people that are like-minded and have a passion and find it. I love the psychological aspect of acting. It's a real study of yourself and a character. So I just love it. But The Color Purple, you couldn't ask for a better production. You couldn't ask for a better book, they call it. They call the music and the lyrics and the script of a play as a book. It was magical. Yeah. And to be with us, you know what I mean? Telling this beautiful story that changed the world, really. It came out in 1985, the movie. And I remember when I went to see it with my dad and my sister. Yeah.
Wow, that is wild. That is awesome. I wanted to ask you, were there any gems that you wanted to give to other artists who were following your, want to follow your path, or, continue to inspire? Is there anything you want to give them about this, career?
I would say just be prepared to work hard and have faith.
Okay.
If you don't right now have a spiritual connection, you will find one if you're going to stay in this industry. You will find one if you don't have one already. And just know that there is enough out there for all of us. So don't be jealous and say, well, why not me? And oh, it's not fair. And she doesn't sound as good as I do. And that. There's always going to be somebody else getting more, or getting less, or getting what they have coming to them. And we all have our thing coming to us. And honey, if it ain't working, fix it, or change, move on to something else. I mean, because if you don't have what it takes, but if you'll know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you have something that enough people enjoy, even if it's not the millions of people, if enough people want to come see you and they're buying your album and you love it, then do it. But you just gotta, any business is a hard business. That's why they call it work. But that's the hard part. But the rest is so rewarding.
That's incredible. And I love your outlook. And that is such a huge gem, because staying in that positive mindset to move forward.
But really just self being, it's about you. Yeah. It's like, who's Dior? And what does Dior have? What is the universe giving to Dior? And being patient, but also I love the idea of waking up and whenever you can meditate or do meditate, even if you wake up in the morning and just say a prayer and thank God, remind yourself what your purpose is in life, and just tell yourself that I'm here to give inspiration and joy and, inspire, or whatever it is.
So what can people expect to experience here at Blues Alley this weekend when they come to see you?
Well, this weekend coming up is Mother's Day weekend. So I had that in mind when I picked the songs. No, it's not, every song is not a dedication to moms, but the idea of bringing life into this world, like, so I'm starting off with a Brazilian tune called Pretty World, and it's just about creating a pretty world, and that's what mothers assume that they're going to probably, most mothers do for their child. So yeah, just songs that inspire and make you think about who you are as a person and why you are that way and who made you that way. Maybe I have Sly and the Family Stone in there. I have Etta James in there. I've got Cole Porter in there. I've got a Billie Holiday. So it's a range. But it's just I just love connecting to people and making people feel good. So.
And I love how you're continually influenced by the international. You're like, I'm gonna bring in that Brazilian. Oh wow, like they're getting a variety. They're getting everything. This is beautiful, reflective of your journey.
Keep it fresh. Yeah.
And where can people find you on Instagram, website, social media?
Yes, it's Nicole Henry Music on both Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, Nicole Henry Jazz. So yes, but NicoleHenry.com will keep you up to date. We still do email blasts once or twice a month just to let people know what's going on, whether it be The Color Purple or the touring or a new single coming out. I have a new single coming out. I did a cover of Sade's "Is It a Crime?" So that's coming out. So there's a lot. Got to keep it going. So
everyone, you have to come see her, Nicole Henry, here at Blues Alley. She is a natural vibe. I'm so excited about all her soul. And I mean, just being present with this being is really beautiful. So please come out to the show. It's going to be amazing. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, just thank you very much. I'm excited about the DC Summit. Great to learn about it. And I look forward to hearing great things. And thank you for doing that, because we all do learn so much. And it's great to have a community. It's great to have a community. So you're doing more than you know. You are doing more than you know. So thank you. Thank you for that.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.